All right, hello everyone. Welcome to this online course on machine learning. It is bizarre that we have to continue doing our courses in this manner. Welcome to Seventh Sun, and we are still in the middle of this pandemic, and because of that, our colleges has not started yet. But then I hope we will be back to live classes very soon. I hope things will get back to normal very soon and hope to meet you soon. But then, till the time normal college does not reopen, we have to continue with our online classes, and we have to continue in this manner. So, the target audience of this video, the students of JC, they don't need my introduction, they know me well. But then for people who are watching this on the internet, my name is Diptisam Tawhidi. I am a faculty at the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Jorhat Engineering College, Jorhat, Assam. I will be teaching this course machine learning for the 7th sem student of my department. And with that, let us start this introduction video. Okay. Before we proceed, let us talk about the course outcome. What is it that a student would be able to do once they finish this course, right? They would be able to understand the mathematical principles behind machine learning algorithms. They would be able to apply algorithms to solve machine learning problems, and they would be able to do this on a computer by writing programs and on paper by solving using calculator and pen. Okay, then they would be able to develop application using modern tools. I have given two names, scikit-learn and tensorflow, but then students would be free to use any tools of their choosing. They can use uh, R, they can use uh, whatever they want. They can MATLAB, or if they are very much interested, they can even go for assembly language. That's not a problem with me. Okay. Then the fourth course outcome: a student who has taken this course would be able to fine tune, adjust machine learning algorithm to increase their efficiency. Okay. So then this is a very important skill in machine learning, and students should have experience doing this. And then the students would be able to evaluate the performance of machine learning model and compare two different models and tell which one is better given different aspects, right? So these are the five outcomes. By the end of the course, a student would be able to do these five things. Now let us look at the syllabus. There are total six modules in the syllabus. All right. Module 1, we will look at uh, what is the well-posed machine learning problem. Okay, the well-posed machine learning problem, this is the formal definition of machine learning. Then we would look at theoretically how to design a learning system, and we will do this with an example. Okay, then we will look at supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. What do these things mean? And then one thing that I want to tell you in advance, that these are three different types of machine learning. Okay, so one is supervised, where the algorithms are given example solution. Okay, so say it's raining and it is humid, there is windy, and someone plays tennis. Then it is someone does not play tennis. Okay, then it is sunny, it is not windy, and it is not humid. Then someone plays tennis. So like this, whether on different condition, whether someone plays tennis, that would be given to you. Okay, that data set would be given to you. So we will learn how, on what condition does this person play tennis. Okay, from this data set. And then later on, when you are given a new information of a day, uh, the day is overcast, it is medium windy, and then it is not humid, will the person play tennis? So that is something our machine learning algorithm would be able to predict based on the previous data, the training data that it was given. So this type of data, when we had the features and the target, that is the different conditions of the day and whether the person played tennis or not. This is called supervised learning. In unsupervised learning, this is a different kind of example. This is a different kind of learning. In unsupervised learning, we will have data, and we will not have this target. Okay, we will not have the answer. What is the type of data? For example, we may have different pictures of uh, say animals. All right, and then we have to classify. Say we have pictures of cats and dogs. All right, so all our pictures have either a cat or a dog. Now our machine learning algorithms task could be to classify these pictures, to segment these pictures into two groups. This kind of groups are called clusters, into two clusters. And one cluster would contain the pictures of cat, the other would contain the picture of dogs. Alright, so this is an example of unsupervised learning. The third example is reinforcement learning, where the algorithm would simulate what would happen if it takes some action. Okay, and then based on this simulation, it is going to learn. Now, what is the thing that it is going to learn? For example, there would be some notion of a reward. Okay, now if the algorithm makes a correct decision, it would be rewarded, and if it takes a wrong decision, it will not get that reward. So the algorithm's main objective would be to maximize the reward that it gets towards the end of uh, the problem. All right. After learning, it wants to maximize the reward. So reinforcement learning is common in robotics, where you can simulate your robot in environments. Is very common in game. You can search reinforcement learning demo in YouTube, and you will see people have used reinforcement learning in lots of gaming situation to play Mario, for example, and lots of other games. All right. Even this uh, your society, your computer society, this what is it called, Glug. Uh, in their website, there is a they claim that they have created a game that plays Flappy Bird on its own, and they have claimed that they have taught it to play that using reinforcement learning. But I did not see the code, so I cannot ascertain that claim is correct. Okay, but then since they have claimed on the website, it must be true. Alright, so these are three types of learning. But then apart from these three, there are other types of learning as well. We will talk about them in a very general overview. One is semi-supervised learning. Alright, people have discovered that if you do not have level data is the example that I gave, where your condition is given, condition of the day is given, and the level, whether the person is going to play tennis or not. Those kind of data is called level data. On the other hand, this picture of cat and dog, where we do not know which one is a picture of cat, which one is a picture of dog. So in that case, we have to cluster on our own. We have to group them into two, but we do not know from before which is cat, which is dog. That is unlabeled data. Okay. So active learning is this. In semi-supervised learning, we have some of the data is labeled and most of the data is not labeled. Now people have discovered that if you have this kind of scenario, then using this level data, you can do some training that would massively improve whatever you are going to do with the unlabeled data. Okay, so that is one more type of learning apart from supervised reinforcement learning. And then you have things like active learning. Okay, where the computer is going to ask you, in case the computer is facing confusion, there is going to be some human in the loop who is going to provide guidance to the computer. Okay. So these are the types of learning. Now there are the types of tasks that we are going to do. One is classification, one is regression, and one is clustering. Now classification is this say I have labeled data of pictures of cats and dogs. Okay, so I have lots of pictures of cats and dogs, and with each of the picture I have this value that 1.jpg is the picture of a cat, 2.jpg is a picture of a cat, 3.jpg is a picture of a dog. So I have this data. Okay, and from that data I am going to do some machine learning. I am going to train some machine learning algorithm, and then later on someone is going to give me a picture, and I don't know, I don't have the label data whether it's a cat or dog. I am going to feed it to an algorithm, and my algorithm to the trained algorithm, and my trained algorithm is going to tell me whether it's a cat or dog. So based on this, see, the answer that the trained algorithm is going to give me belongs to one of two classes, right? So whether it will belong to class cat or it will belong to class dog. So this is called classification. Another example of classification is recognition of, say, digits. Okay, so I have lots of pictures of digits where people have written 1, 2, 0 up to 9. So 0 up to 9 people have written with hand, and I have pictures of that written handwriting. Right. So this data set actually is a very popular data set. It is called MNIST. So from that data set, what we are going to do is we are going to learn to recognize handwriting. Now, once someone draws a letter and give me the picture of that letter, that digit, I have to predict which of these 10 classes this picture belongs to. Alright. So there are 10 classes 0 to 9, and now I have to tell which of these 10 classes this picture actually is. It's whether it belongs to class 0, is it 0, is it 1, is it 2, or is it a picture of class 9, is it the digit 9. So now what is the thing that I'm doing? I have a predefined set of classes, alright, and I have to tell my picture or my data belongs to which of these classes. This is called classification. Next problem is regression. In regression, I do not have any fixed classes. Instead, I have to output a real number. Okay. So in classification, I knew that my digits that was drawn, okay, belong to one of these 10 classes. An example of regression would be predicting the house rent. Okay, given the area of my apartment, okay, given how many rooms are there in the apartment, how far is it from train station, how far is it from the city center, what is the crime rate in my area. So given all this information and more information, for example, I should be able to predict what would be the rent of this house. Okay, now the rent of this house I cannot put into classes, right? It is going to be a real number in a sense. Okay, it's going to be some number, and I have to output this number. So this kind of problem is called regression. Clustering problem is I have data, unlabeled data. Okay, I just have uh, say data of people who have gone to Big Bazaar. Okay, throughout its history. Okay, now I have to classify the people into different groups. Now one group, maybe there is this one group that I have. Sorry, I don't need. I will classify, but then the problem is called clustering. I should not use the word classify over here, else it would make everything confusing. All right. So I will group these people into different clusters. The people who have gone to Big Bazaar. Now, one cluster, one group of people, uh, maybe those people who buys electronics. There would be another group of people, maybe who buys cosmetic. There will be another group of people who buys, uh, say, grocery. Now I have grouped all my customers into three different groups. Now, what is the advantage of this? For example, if I want to spam this user, okay, there is no point sending advertisement regarding cosmetics to a user who only buys grocery. Okay, so uh, that is one advantage. We can do targeted advertisement. So yeah, that is what clustering gives us. So these are three uh, main classes of problems in machine learning, but then apart from this there are lots of other things. Okay, for example, dimensionality reduction is one big uh, area of study. We are going to do that in this course. And then apart from dimensionality reduction, there is uh, association rule mining. That is your advertisement that you see on Amazon. For example, customers who bought this also bought this. If I buy, say, uh, if I buy a mobile, uh, then they would show me a mobile cover. If I buy a mobile cover and a mobile, then they would show me, say, a memory card. Okay, so based on things that I buy, they will show me something else. Okay, now there is one more example that I'm going to give you over here. Uh, Say I have seen uh, a horror movie. Okay, then the Netflix is going to recommend me more horror movies. Uh, and say I have seen one comedy movie, then Netflix is going to recommend me more comedies. This is one instance of seeing one movie. Now, based on my history, I have seen one horror movie and I have seen one comedy movie. Say I have seen The Ring and I have seen what Hangover. All right. So I have seen one comedy. I have seen one horror movie. Now Netflix is going to recommend me a comedy horror movie. Say It. Okay, IT. So that is something that instead of just using one product, a Ring implies Danan or Hangover implies Hangover 2. They are going to use both of these, and they are the Ring and uh, Hangover implies this scary movie. All right, so that is something that is going to happen. We are going to look at this kind of things as well. These are called association rule mining. Okay. Then we are going to look at what is hypothesis space and what is inductive bias. Okay. Then this bias variance trade-off. Bias variance trade-off essentially we are going to look at something called overfitting in this area. Okay, and we are going to look at how good of a fit our model has done on the data. Okay, how properly it has fit the data, the goodness of fit. Then we are going to look at hypothesis and hypothesis, how good is our hypothesis, hypothesis testing, and we are going to look at how to compare learning algorithm. All right. So this is going to be uh, module one. All right. I did not talk about depth in all these things by bias variance trade-off, overfitting, goodness of fit. I am going to need charts and to even give you the introduction. Okay. Graphs and charts to give you the introduction. So we will talk about this later. In module 2, we are going to look at a few supervised learning algorithm. Okay, as you might remember from here, a supervised algorithm is one where the features are given. The features are those data based on which we are going to predict something, and the thing that we are going to predict is called the target. So the features and the target, both of them are given. Okay, so it is labeled data. So if you give me a picture of a cat, you are also going to tell me that this is a cat. So both the data, the picture would be the feature, and the label that this is a cat, that is going to be the label, the target. Alright, so both of these will be given in this kind of algorithm, supervised learning algorithm. We are going to learn k-nearest neighbor, naive Bayes, decision tree, and random forest. Essentially the same thing. Lots of trees is going to make a forest, right? Lots of decision trees is going to give me a random forest. Then we are going to look at something called linear algebra. Then we are going to look at logistic regression. Then something very similar to linear algebra, in geometry, but still very powerful and very different, called SVM. Okay, support vector machine. And then we are going to use something called kernel methods with this SVM to really make SVM very powerful. Okay, now without kernel, normal SVM is better than linear algebra, but then linear regression, but then almost like linear regression. But with kernel method, uh, SVM becomes really powerful. Alright. Then we are going to look at some unsupervised learning uh, algorithm. Okay. So in unsupervised learning, we are going to look at clustering. Clustering, as I said, unlevel picture of cats and dogs. I am my machine learning algorithm which has to group this picture into two clusters, into two groups. One would be the group of pictures of cats, other would be the group of pictures of dogs. So we are going to look at k-means and dbScan. Alright, then we are going to look at another algorithm called hidden Markov model. We will look at this. This is also a very powerful algorithm, although not very popular. Okay, but interesting algorithm. Then we are going to look at dimensionality reduction. Essentially, say I want to tell whether some student is a good student or a bad student. Okay. Now I am going to do this on the basis of his or her marks. Now it may so happen that there is a subject, okay, environmental studies, where all the students have got A grades. Now there is no variance at all in this subject, right? Everyone in the class has got A grade in that subject. Now, is it any use using that environmental science, okay, to calculate my whether the student is good or bad, right? So I want to classify, but then I have this one data that does not offer me almost anything, that does not give me any information at all. Okay, there is no variance in the data. Everyone in the data set, all the students in the data set got A grade. Okay, so there is no variance. There is this data is useless. I want to remove this data. So this thing, okay, is called dimensionality reduction. And we are going to look at two techniques, SVD and PCA. Now in dimensionality reduction, we are going to use this thing, linear algebra to a bit more depth than we would have used in previous things. Even in linear regression, logistic regression, everywhere we are going to use linear algebra, okay, to at least represent the things using matrices. But in all these areas, our matrices would be just for representation of this thing. Okay, we are essentially just going to do matrix multiplication and addition in all these things at max. But here we really need to uh, understand the geometric interpretation of uh, linear algebra. We need to know, uh, first we need to really understand what a covariance matrix mean, okay, and then we have to know what is eigenvalue, eigenvector in this matrix. So that is something that we have to really understand geometrically. We have to build an equation of this thing in order to understand what PCA is actually doing. Okay, then there is association rule mining. In association rule mining, this is if A then B, that is this Amazon, Netflix, this recommendation engine type of thing. Okay, association rule mining, we are going to look at two algorithms, a priori and FBQ. Okay. Now, there are three more modules, but there is a bit of prerequisite that I did not talk about. You need to know a little bit of probability theory up to Bayes theorem. Okay, you need to know Bayes theorem uh, for Naive Bayes classifier. Naive Bayes classifier is entirely based on Bayes theorem. If you understand Bayes theorem, you know naive Bayes classifier. Alright. Then you need to know uh, for linear regression and logistic regression, you really need to know differential calculus. Okay, so differential calculus is, as you have already studied, is used to find the minima and maxima of a function, right? So in many of the algorithms, especially in an algorithm called gradient descent, uh, the target is to create a function called a loss function that will give me the total error. Okay. Now this function, the error function that is giving me the total error, using this differential calculus, I am going to find the minima of that function. Okay. So you need to know a little bit of differential calculus, but don't worry too much about it. Uh, I will revise with you. Okay, all these things. So you need to know probability theory, you need to know differential calculus, and you need to know linear algebra. So if you go ahead and revise these topics from YouTube videos, then it would be beneficial for you. But then it is not required. We will do this together in the course. Okay. After module 1 to 3, I have 3 more modules. Module 4 is artificial neural network. Okay. The most powerful thing that we are going to study, and it may so happen that once you study artificial neural network, you may even stop using everything else. Alright. In artificial neural network, the first thing that we are going to look at is the perceptron model, essentially linear regression. Uh, don't worry about what I just said. Okay. We are going to see how this is going to be represented using this neural network form using matrices and vectors. Then we are going to really look at how vectorization should be used. Okay. Now vectorization, essentially we represent it using these matrices and vectors. The main reason is not that we are using linear algebra somewhere. The main reason is that these forms can be really made parallel. Okay, matrix multiplication, for example, can be parallelized in your computer to a very large extent. Okay, you are going to study SEA. In SEA, you are going to study something called uh, SIMD, single instruction multiple data. So there are SIMD instruction. Uh, so there is this SIMD type feature that is available in all modern processor, including the ones that are running on your laptop or on your mobile right now. Okay, so there are lots of SIMD instruction. Now there is this library called NumPy. NumPy uses SIMD instruction behind the scene to really fasten up the speed of execution. Okay, it does parallel execution behind the scene to speed up execution. So to do that, to take advantage of this kind of parallelization, we need to represent our data in such a way that it can be easily parallelized. Okay, so that is what I mean by vectorization over here. So how your data should be represented in the form of matrices and vectors, and of course you can have this transformation of matrices, whether your data is going to be in column or in row. So that would influence how fast your algorithm is, how fast your uh, calculation is going to be done on the computer. So we are really going to understand this thing. Okay, that ultimately when I am doing this calculation, this matrix multiplication and matrix addition, okay, is my representation efficient enough to run very fast? Now this is very important. Okay, and I want to talk about a little bit of history over here. The reason why uh, artificial neural network or deep learning is becoming popular now in the last 10 years is because of two reasons. All right. The first reason is that good quality data, a high volume of data, large amount of data is finally becoming available to use. Previously, there was no data. There was not that much data, but now there are lots of data available. Okay, I will show you where to find data. I will show you some examples of data in this video itself. But then this is one reason, availability of data, and then the other reason is that our computers have become very fast. Okay, this is probably the main reason why ANN, which was invented, the concepts behind these things were discovered back in 70s 80s. All right, but then these are becoming popular now after 2010, uh, this era. All right, so yeah, the reason is that now we have very fast computer that can actually do this huge computation. All right, so know that ANN is very resource intensive, computational resource intensive, and we have to write our program in such a way that this that we our program is efficient. Okay, already lots of calculation has to be done. We should not increase the amount of calculation by writing bad programs. Okay, so that is one thing. Now, perceptron. We were talking about perceptron. Perceptron has one problem. Perceptron essentially draws a line. So there are examples of problem where perceptron does not work properly. Okay, there is this thing called XOR problem, XOR. So XOR it cannot classify properly. Okay, we will talk in depth when we reach module 4. So these are limitations of perceptron. This fact that it cannot even classify a simple problem like XOR. It cannot give the answer to whether A, XOR, B. What is it? Okay. So a perceptron, a simple neural network cannot even answer this question correctly. Alright. So that is some problem with perceptron, a single layer neural network. Now this problem was discovered by the very people who invented perceptron, but then because of the discovery of this problem, initially lots of hype was built around neural network and lots of funding were made, but then suddenly after the discovery of this problem, these bureaucrats and politicians they stopped funding this research. All right, on AI, artificial intelligence itself. And so what happened next for a long period of time, uh, research on AI kind of stopped. Okay, that period of time is known as AI winter. So there was this AI winter that came in, and this AI winter got over when someone called Gregory Hinton, a professor from Canada, they discovered deep neural network. That is essentially using backpropagation, how to train multiple layers of perceptrons. Okay, lots of perceptrons joined together, one after another, in layer after layer, and that is called a deep neural network. So deep neural network can uh, solve this XOR problem, but XOR is not the only problem that deep neural network can solve. Okay. As a matter of fact, a deep neural network can do anything. Okay, in machine learning. Why am I saying this? In machine learning, we can think of machine learning, we can think of this classification regression as this. We are going to approximate a function, okay, where the parameters to the function would be the data and the output of the function would be the target. Okay, whether it's a cat or a dog, the input would be the picture of either a cat or a dog. Okay, That is the function that we are going to approximate. Now it has been mathematically proven that a deep neural network can approximate any function. Okay. Now maybe my data is not big enough to find that approximation. Maybe I am unable to find that deep neural network which can do perfect prediction on my data. But notice there is a deep neural network somewhere out there, okay, undiscovered somewhere, that can do perfect prediction on any data. All right. So we have that deep neural network can approximate any function. So deep neural network is really powerful. All right. Now it may so happen that this overfitting, once again I did not talk about what is overfitting, but then overfitting is something that is a problem. Now overfitting problem is here in neural network deep learning as well. Okay. So there are two techniques. One is called regularization, another is called dropout. These are techniques to decrease overfitting. Okay, so we are going to learn about this. Then we are going to learn about tuning hyperparameter. This is just some tips and tricks that we are going to discuss. So essentially, when to increase the number of layer, when to decrease the number of layer, when to increase the number of nodes in a layer. Okay, we are going to talk about this, and then these are hyperparameters. Okay, parameters is the weights. I did not talk about what is weight, so let's not worry. Uh, so there are lots of things. Learning rate. Okay, and then this regularization, L2 regularization factor, dropout probability. Okay, so all these are hyperparameters, and we are going to talk about how to tune these hyperparameters. Which parameter should I say, based on this loss and training values. Okay, so this is one more topic. Then there is this technical early stopping, which is one more way of preventing overfitting. That if your data has, if your model has learned already, okay, the thing that it needs to learn, then there is no point in keeping on training. Okay? So we stop training, because training is a very expensive process, time consuming, computationally expensive process. So uh, early stopping is also a useful concept. But these are very easy things. We will go over this very rapidly. Then there is convolution neural network. Okay, CNN. This mainly used to pictures. So we will talk about this. Then there is recurrent neural network, GRU and LSTM. These are used with time series data. We will talk about both GRU and LSTM in recurrent neural network. Okay. Then there is transfer learning. Say I have say I know how to read Bengali letters. Okay. Now I am going to use that knowledge in order to learn to read SMS letters. Now this transfer of knowledge, okay, this transfer of my skill from learning Bengali, and I transfer it into learning SMS. This is called transfer learning. Autoencoder is something very similar to PCA. PCA, it does what? It reduces the size of the target, right? It reduces the number of dimension in my data. So the environmental science studies where everyone got A, it would be removed. So this is also, autoencoder is also a similar kind of concept, but then autoencoder is more powerful. Why? Because autoencoder is non-linear. PCA on the other hand is linear. Okay. So autoencoder, we are going to learn about autoencoder. This is very interesting, very beautiful thing. Alright. Then we are going to look at a few case studies of CNN. Especially, I have written examples of CNN. One is LXNet, one is LeNet, there is VGG, ResNet, InsertionNet. Okay. So we are going to look at these different architectures of CNN, and apart from this, there will be two, three more that I did not write about, but because these are all CNN architectures, we are going to look at different architectures as well of RNN as well. Alright. Then in module 5 we are going to look at reinforcement learning. I will introduce reinforcement learning later on. Right now, let us not go into that. We are mainly talking about all these things that we have talked about till now. Mainly deals with supervised learning and unsupervised to some extent. Reinforcement learning is the third type of learning where this reward based concept is there, where the learning algorithm tries to maximize the reward. So, that kind of concept. We are going to introduce reinforcement learning, define reinforcement learning, then define the learning task. What is it that we are going to learn here? There is no labeled data like in supervised learning. We are going to look at two techniques. One is Q learning and the other is temporal difference learning. Okay. Then we are going to talk about this rewards and action, non-deterministic rewards and action, and then this generalizing from examples. Okay. So given examples, how to learn from them, and then we are going to see how these are similar to these dynamic programming concepts that you have studied. All right. Then in module 6, we are going to look at a few topics, but then I want to tell you this in advance. Module 6, we will not leave till the end. Okay, whenever the relevant topic comes out, we will do this. Module 6 is just scattered all around. Okay, this is additional topics uh, that do not fit anywhere else, but then it applies everywhere. Okay, so we are going to look at data pre-processing, how to pre-process data before we feed it to a machine learning algorithm. For example, if there is outliers, for example, say there is a column where the height of a person is written. Okay. Now suddenly I see that in one of the entries, the height of a person, some person is given as 100 meter, but then the height of a person cannot be 100 meter. So this must be an error. Okay, this kind of error is called an outlier. So I have to handle these outliers. All right. Then some values may be missing in my data. What do I do when these values are missing? How to handle that? Uh, and then there is this scaling of data, normalization of data that I will have to do. Okay, so that is one more thing that needs to be done for a properly trained machine learning model. Okay, so these are all pre-processing. All right. Then we are going to look at some basic things in natural language processing. Mainly, we are not going to go into depth, right? NLP itself is a course. Uh, but then we are going to look at how to represent a paragraph of data. That is the thing that we are going to do. There is one technique called bag of words, uh, the most simplest technique. So we are going to start with bag of words, and then we are going to move into more recent technique, that is word vectors. Okay, so uh, based on similarity of words and all these things, there are models, open source models that are made available by big companies like Google. Okay, so we are going to see how we can use those models to represent a paragraph as a vector. Okay, because ultimately our machine learning model is going to take vectors as input, okay, arrays as input. So maybe single dimensional, maybe multi-dimensional, but I have to give it array, uh, 1D or 2D or 3D array of data. Okay. So how do I take a paragraph and convert it into an array? That is something that we are going to look in basics of NLP. A paragraph of words to a array of numbers. What do I do? Then we will look at removing bias from data. This is also an important topic. Now, let me give you an example of this. It may so happen that when I, in NLP, for example, if I look at similarity of words, for example, if I look at this word scientist, okay, I may see that the word father is closer to the word scientist than the word mother, or the word boy is closer to the scientist than the word girl. Okay, and alternatively, if I look at the word nurse, then I may see that the word father is further than the word mother, or the word actress is closer to the word nurse than the word actor. Okay, now what is happening here? The word scientist, the word nurse, they are not gender specific word. Okay, but then the word actor, actress, father, mother, boy, girl, they are gender specific word. Now, the fact that scientist is closer to father and father from the word mother in my similarity calculation is not because of uh, any reason, right? A female can be a good scientist, right? There are good uh, researchers, academics in India itself who are female, right? Lots of Bhatnagar awardees, Nobel Prize, okay. But then because of historical reason, okay, uh, our data itself uh, is biased. Okay, if we are using text data, then because of historical reason, uh, our data itself would be biased. So maybe in lots of places the word he has been used to describe scientists. Then the word scientist becomes closer to the word he, and then the word he becomes closer to the word father. And so because of this relation, the word scientist becomes closer to the word father. But then this is bias in data. This does not reflect reality. Okay, so we have to remove this kind of bias. Now, there has been lots of controversy in media because of things like this. All right, uh, this has, for example, the mobile phone camera app recognizes the face of a person. If the person is smiling, takes photo automatically. So there are apps like this, and now these apps were using machine learning to recognize the face. It so happened that some particular app, I don't remember which, was unable to recognize pictures of people of certain races. All right, so that should not happen. Now, this kind of bias in data has to be removed. Okay, so this is one important topic that we are going to talk about. Then we are going to talk about how to work with small data set. What to do in small data set? The model tend to overfit data. Okay, and then unbalanced data set. What to do if I have 1 million pictures of cats and only 1000 pictures of dogs? Okay, then it's an unbalanced data set. So there are things that I have to do. I have to augment data. All right, augmentation is the most basic thing that we do. Then apart from augmentation, there are lots of other things that we can do. We are going to talk about all these things in module 6, but then module 6 I am not going to leave it till the end. I am going to talk about this whenever the relevant topic comes up. Okay, this do not appear in isolation, right? This appear in certain model. So for example, uh, NLP, okay, uh, predicting the next word in a sentence or predicting the next letter. Okay, predicting next word is very common, right? In your mobile phone keyboard itself, when you type a word, automatically at the top of your keyboard, the next word is suggested. So predicting the next word. So this prediction of next word can be done with recurrent neural network, right? So uh, when we see recurrent neural network, we are going to talk about that topic, right? So this is something that we are going to do, right? This is your syllabus. All right. Uh, Now that we have talked about the syllabus, there are two books that we are going to mainly follow in the course. One is this book, Machine Learning by Tom Mitchell. The other is Deep Learning by Goodfellow. Okay, both of these books are very good. Both of these books, I believe, are available on the internet for free. Just Google them. Uh, these are the two that we are going to use. Now, my aim behind the course is that if you don't find this meme funny at this moment, you should find it funny by the end of this course. Okay. So there is this guy. He is asking, "Is this your machine learning system?" The other guy, this guy, he says, "Yep. You pour the data. You pour data into this big pile of linear algebra. So this is a pile of linear algebra, and you pour data into this pile of linear algebra. The answer comes out of this box. Okay. So this guy again asks, what if the answers are wrong? So our previous guy, he says, just keep staring this pile of linear algebra until the answer looks right. So if you don't find this funny, don't worry. My aim in this course is to make sure that you find this meme funny by the end of the course. Okay, so let's go ahead. A little bit of motivation before we start. Why learn machine learning? So this person is Andrew Ng. He's at CMU, Carnegie Mellon University. Previously, I believe he was in Stanford. He said, just as electricity transformed almost everything 100 years ago, today I actually have a hard time thinking of an industry that I don't think AI will transform in the next several years. So very good motivation. It is a very transforming uh, domain. Already cars are becoming automatic. Already the pilot has no work inside a plane. Okay, our Google search, everything depends on uh, AI. The fact that we log into YouTube and suddenly all the recommended videos that we see are videos that we are interested in, not random videos, is because of machine learning. So there are lots of industries that are going to be transformed, according to Andrew Wang, by machine learning. So a very good motivation. Some more motivation. This is data from uh, LinkedIn. To So this is from 2012 to 2017. We can see machine learning engineer, data scientist, then director of data science, and a related thing, big data developer. Okay, so among the top 20 most growing jobs, I have four that are very close to machine learning. And is there more? There might be more. All right. And so job market is growing. That is one more motivation. Other motivation is this salary. You can see in this data on the right. Salary is in USA. You get six-figure salary in terms of dollar. So that should be also a good motivation. Even in India, the median salary is $14,000, more than $14,000. So this is based on 157 uh, people. All right. So this is the median salary, not the mean. Mean is a bad parameter. Why mean is a bad parameter? If tomorrow Bill Gates comes to Surenda's hotel, okay, to eat rice, then everyone in Surenda's hotel would become a billionaire. Right. So on average. So average or mean is not a very good statistic. Uh, but then median, this is median. That means half the people is earning at least this. Okay, half the people are earning at least this in USA. So you can look at a salary. You can decide for yourself if it is motivating enough. All right. Then there is some fallout that machine learning is going to have. All right. So this is based on an article on Business Insider. It says that this job of telemarketer, accountant, retail salesperson, technical writer, all these jobs are going to be taken over by machine learning. All right. So and there are more jobs. that are going to be automated, that are going to be fully automated, and these jobs will no longer exist. Right? These are going to be taken over by machine learning. Our call center employees, when we call someone, then we are going to actually interact with machine learning systems. All right. There is actually a very good video of this where your OK Google, uh, Google Assistant, uh, in fact, a person tells Google Assistant, "Okay, Google, fix an appointment for me with the in a with a barber or someone next Wednesday." And then Google Assistant calls the barber, talks with the barber using a very human tone, and fixes an appointment with the barber. Okay, so yeah, uh, it can do human to human interaction already pretty well. So this telemarketer job, it may go away. So lots of industries are going to be influenced. This is not a good thing. Lots of people are going to become are going to lose their job. So uh, this is a problem that needs to be addressed somewhere in the future. All right. So what is machine learning? Machine learning is an application of artificial intelligence (AI) that provides systems the ability to automatically learn and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed to do so. So machine learning is, you can see from this Venn diagram, it is a subfield of artificial intelligence. Okay, then deep learning is a subfield of machine learning, but then machine learning itself is a subfield of AI, subset of AI. Machine learning, it is a software that improves its performance, okay, from experience. As it sees more and more data, it is going to improve its experience. Now I don't need to program machine learning to explicitly do that task. For example, a machine learning program to drive a car. Okay, I don't need to explicitly write the program to drive a car. Instead, I will have a general program, say a neural network program. Okay, and I'm going to give that neural network program pictures of instant of time, and what is the action that some human driver took at that point of time. All right. So yeah, based on this data, picture and action that human took when that picture was encountered. So this is going to be data, and using this, my self-driving car is going to learn to drive. Now, I am not writing a program that teaches the car to drive. I am just writing a ANN program, right? Artificial neural network program. The car learns to drive from data, and as it sees more and more data, it is going to improve its accuracy, right? So this kind of program that improves its performance to do some task in some task as it gains more experience. This kind of program are called machine learning program. Now, machine learning focuses on the development of computer program that can access data and use it to learn for themselves, right? So yeah, it can access data and you can learn on that data. Now, there is one related field called data analysis. All right. Now, machine learning, uh, we will talk about this, but let's talk a bit about data analysis. Data analysis also works with data, but then in data analysis, we can do descriptive analysis. All right. Descriptive analysis is description of the data. For example, finding mean, median, mode, these central tendencies, then finding the moments, then finding quartiles, all these things. Then there is EDA. EDA is graphically showing uh, patterns in the data. Okay. See, in descriptive analysis and in EDA, we are not predicting anything. Okay, then there is this thing called confirmatory data analysis. This is uh, hypothesis testing, statistical hypothesis testing. Alright, there are things like F test, ANOVA, T test, then chi-square test. So all these tests are going to tell us whether some hypothesis that I have. For example, I am going to run chi-square test in order to see whether you have cheated or not in CI2 of graph theory. Okay, so my hypothesis is that you have not cheated. So that would be my null hypothesis, and based on this chi-square test, I would be able to tell whether you have cheated or not. If you have not cheated, then my null hypothesis, that is, you have not cheated, would be true. But then, if you have cheated, then my null hypothesis would become false, and I will have to accept the alternative hypothesis that you have cheated. All right. So I'm going to show that at a later point of time. This kind of data analysis is called confirmatory data analysis. All right, and then there is this another field in data analysis called predictive analysis. So predictive analysis is what we are going to study in this semester. This is ML, machine learning. Okay, so apart from this, there is text analysis, so lots of other things. So we can see data analysis is a bigger set, and inside data analysis we have machine learning. Okay, and that is what this Venn diagram also tells us, that this is data analysis. Inside data analysis we have machine learning, and this is in fact in the intersection of algorithm and data analysis. So we apply some algorithm to data analysis, the intersection that we have, this is machine learning according to this Venn diagram. All right. So let's not next talk about what is data. Data is characteristic of or information. These are usually numerical that are collected through observation. So we make observation and then we collect data. Data is essentially information. But then some people have this uh, difference between data and information. They say that data is transformed into information when it is viewed in context or in post analysis. This means data is the raw data, the numbers that you have, okay, the Excel sheet that you have. But then when you look at this data, when you get some knowledge from this data, then that becomes information. Okay, simple numbers on a sheet of paper, on a very big chunk of number, they don't say that it is according to this definition, that would not be information. Okay, if I now give you lots of RGB values of this picture of a cat, lots of number. Now you will look at this data. This would still be data, but then you will not get any information out of it. Instead of giving you this RGB numbers, red, green, blue, okay, so of the pixel, instead of giving you these numbers, if I show you the image of that, you will have this information. Yeah, this is a picture of a cat. All right, then that would become information. Okay, so this is data and information. Data is a set of values of qualitative or quantitative. Okay, qualitative would be in Amazon, for example, the reviews that people write would be qualitative data. The rating that people give would be quantitative data. Okay, about one or more person or object. So data is qualitative or quantitative information about things. Datum is the singular form of data. Okay, so data is employed in scientific research, business management, for example, sales data, revenue, profit, stock price. It is used in finance. It is used in governance, for example, crime rate, unemployability, literacy, etc. And in almost every other form of human organization. Okay, so almost everywhere data is used. Data is measured, collected, reported, analyzed. whereupon so data has to be measured. You have to measure it, then you have to write it down, collect it, then you have to send it, report it through graphs and everything, and then you have to run analysis on it. All right, so different things that can be done, and then it can be visualized using graphs, images, and other analysis tool. Now in our course we are not going to talk about visualization of data, but then do remember that visualization is going to be a very important tool in your entire machine learning chain. Okay, maybe I will talk a little bit about visualization in data pre-processing. Please don't neglect visualization, right? That is something that I want to say. If you visualize your data, very often you will know what machine learning algorithm is going to feed this data properly. Okay, so basic visualization in 2 dimension and 3 dimension, we cannot go more than that. We cannot visualize 4 dimensional data. There are techniques, but then uh, maybe 4 dimensional we can visualize. The fourth dimension would be color. Okay, uh, but then say 100 dimensional data we cannot visualize. Okay, so still, despite this constraint, if we visualize our data, very often uh, we can know what is going to fit our data. Okay, so yeah, that is something that we have. Data is a general concept used to data as a general concept refers to the fact that some existing information or knowledge is represented or coded in some form suitable for better uses or processing. So data is something that means that it can be used to uh, retain some information, retrieve some information from it. Okay? Information or knowledge from it. So data contains some information or knowledge. In its raw form, we may not be able to directly view or understand the information, but then we can retrieve information from it. Raw data, that is your unprocessed data, is a collection of numbers or characters before it has been cleaned and corrected by researchers. So raw data, once again, numbers or character in case it is qualitative, number is if it is quantitative. All right, uh, it may need cleaning and all those things that we will talk about. Data needs to be corrected to remove outliers and biases, instrument or data entry error. For example, thermometer reading from an outdoor Arctic location recording at tropical temperature. So I have a thermometer in Antarctica that is saying that it is 40 degrees Celsius. So that is probably an error. All right. So we have to remove this error because of outliers or instrument bias. All right. Then data processing commonly occurs in stages, and the processed data from one stage may be considered the raw data to the next stage. So we will talk about this in when we talk about data pre-processing. Okay. Now this is a quote that I really like. Data is the new oil of the digital economy. So yeah, oil is a very precious thing. Data is also a very precious thing because data is so precious. You have these wonderful services like Facebook, Google, and all these things that are available for you for free, even WhatsApp. Okay, they are not available for free. They are available because you are giving them your data. So your data, you are paying them with data, and they are giving them you their costly services. So things like Facebook cost lots of money to maintain. Right? So yeah, and that is something that you have. Data is the new oil of the digital economy. Now there is one U.S. politician called Andrew Yang. He was a presidential candidate from Democratic Party. Uh, he talks a lot about data. He has some radical left-leaning idea. I'm not going to get political here, but then I'm just saying things that is there out in the news. So a few minutes back, I talked about lots of jobs that are going to go away because of uh, ML. Okay, and ML is based on data. So you have more data, and based on this data, machine learning models come. So Andrew Wang, he has this radical idea that I should be paid when my data is used. Okay, if Facebook uses my data to show me advertisement and sell product to me and earn from that product, okay, if that is my data, right? And I should be paid a fraction of the profit that Facebook is making. Now, this is something that someone has suggested on the news. I have no opinion on this. Uh, Make your own decision, make your own opinion, look at news and whatever. Okay, this is a website called Kaggle. All right, you will find lots of data sets in this website. One of the data set is this coronavirus 2000 data set. Let us go ahead and look at this data set. Apart from this, there are I don't know, thousands, lakhs of other data sets in this website that you can download, that you can access, that you can run your program, train your models on. Okay, and then one good thing is that apart from data set, there are also lots of notebook kernels, programs that are uploaded by other users. You can go and look at those programs. You can see what other people are doing before you build your own model, and by looking at other people's model, you can learn a lot. Okay, in this course we are going to look at lots of theory, we are going to look at lots of maths, but then uh, if you go to Kaggle and look at lots of examples, you will learn lots of techniques, good techniques, right? In a web development class, I can teach you how to create a website, how to uh, means create sidebar, how to create button, but then how to make a website beautiful is a act of art. So creating a good model is a similar act of art. Nobody can teach you that. Okay, and there is no hard and fast rule. Had there been hard and fast rule that this exact model needs to be used, then even machine learning engineers' job would get automated. All right, but then there is no hard and fast rule. There's lots of exploration that we have to do. We have to do a lot of hit and try in machine learning. All right. Anyway, this is one data set out of the thousands of data set. This novel coronavirus 2019 data set. This is the data set. It has a few columns. It has serial number, then the date of observation, then the province of observation, the state or province, the country, when is the data last updated, the number of confirmed cases, the number of deaths, and the number of recovered cases. Okay, this is the entire data set, and it had data set up to means yesterday, really up to yesterday, and tomorrow it's going to be updated with today's data. Okay, it's daily being updated. So here, yes, I created this slide 2 days back. So the night before I created this slide, this is the analysis of the night before that. Now, this is not machine learning. Okay, this is definitely data analysis. What you are looking at in your computer screen right now, this is exploratory data analysis, EDA, that we talked about when looking at different types of data analysis. Okay, here what do I see in my screen? I can see on the left the number of corona cases over time, uh, on the right the number of corona cases in India. Okay, left is all over the world, right is, oh no, sorry, left is number of corona cases all over the world, right is number of recoveries all over the world through time, right? So the blue line is number, exact number. The yellow line is something called moving average. That is, you take the average of the last 7 days and keep on moving. All right, simple concept. So yeah, this is world over number of corona cases. This is world over number of recoveries. So we got can visualize this. We got this visualization from the data set. Here is another visualization. This is for India. Number of confirmed cases, number of recoveries. All right. Now here is one more visualization. This is number of province countries with highest number of cases. We have USA on first, then India and Brazil almost at the same level. Okay, not Brazil has more, but then compared to USA, they are in. If we can divide into three classes, this would be one class, this would be one class. So USA alone is in one class. So USA likes to be alone in things, so land of the free. Anyway, then we have India and Brazil definitely higher than rest of the countries, but then lower than USA. But then you have to consider the fact that the population of India is around 6 times higher than the population of USA. Okay, so if we consider that, then India is at least given the data uh, is not doing that bad. Okay, and the population of India and Brazil is almost equivalent as far as I know. All right. Now, all these countries, they are less than India. Population is also less than India. So this is what I have. All right, and here is the number of provinces. I can see after Sao Paulo and California, we have Maharashtra over here. We have Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. Okay, these are the Indian provinces that are in top. What is this? Top 20 or top 10, whatever. Okay, so these are analysis that we can make from the data. Once again, this is EDA, exploratory data analysis. This is not ML. This is not machine learning. We are not making any prediction, any uh, prediction in here. Okay, no classification, no regression, no clustering, nothing of that sort. This is just taking the data and visualizing it. So had I been given this data in the tabular form, I would not be able to tell all these things that I have just told you. All this visualization has already given me lots of information. Okay, there are lots of conclusion that I can make just by visualizing this data. I'm not talking about prediction here. Okay, so just by visualization itself is a very powerful tool. It can give us lots of information of this data. This table is not going to give me anything. This is not information. This is data. This is information. Okay, the graphs are information. Okay, now this is ML. Here what is happening? Here up to this point I have data. This point into the future is being predicted using SVM. Okay, obviously some kernel has been used. If you did not understand what I said, don't worry, you will understand. Okay, in fact we will someone should remind me that once we learn SVM, let us go ahead and use this data set to make this prediction. Okay, because by the time we learn SVM, many more days would have passed, and so we will see at that point of time if uh, we can make predictions to the future. Okay, so yeah, this is some prediction that is done about the future using SVM. This is some prediction that is done about the future using something called polynomial regression. Okay, we will not study polynomial regression. Instead, we will study ML. So, when we do linear regression, we will introduce polynomial regression. Okay, so this is another technique that is used to predict. So we are predicting something here. This is machine learning. Okay, so understand the difference. Previously we were just visualizing the data, we were not making any prediction. That was exploratory data analysis, that is not machine learning. But then here we are making prediction and doing such thing. This is machine learning. Okay. Now here is another data set. Okay. In this data set, I have marks of student. Okay. And then I have lots of data about the student. For example, what is the name of the school, the gender of the student, the age, address, size of the family, parental status, okay, mother's education, father's job, mother's job, and lots of other parameters. Okay. Now here is the thing. This is going to be a regression problem. Based on all these parameter, will I be able to predict the grade of a student? Okay. So people have tried. The grade is out of 20. Okay. So people have tried all these different methods. Linear regression, elastinate, random forest, extra trees, support vector machine, gradient boost, baseline method. Okay. And then there are two errors, type of error that they have looked at: absolute error and root mean square error. We will talk about both of these when we talk about regression. So we can see, using linear regression we get the least amount of the errors. Okay. So yeah, predicting students grade, this is not a good prediction, let me tell you. Out of 20, if you make a error of 3.5, that is not a good prediction. So yeah, but still prediction has been done. Now here is a project that we have been doing. This is the XY position of a pen. Okay, people, a data set was made by professors at Tezpur University. Okay, actually two professors. One is from the Sikkim Manipal Institute of Technology, uh, and one was from Tezpur University. He is now in IIT Guwahati. So they ask people to write in a tablet. Okay, using a stylus, they ask people to write on a tablet, and then this is the position of the stylus in X and Y. Okay, as the stylus moved around, they recorded what are the pixel position, XY position of the stylus. Now, this is as time passed. Okay. Now, what we have done is we have taken this raw file and converted them into images like this. Okay, so these are example of different images that we converted from this raw file. Now, based on these images, we have tried to make some prediction. Given some new image, can we recognize what is the letter? Okay, so there are popular architectures of convolution. We have used convolution neural network. So there are popular architecture: ResNet, Inception, LeNet, and Basic. And this is the accuracy that we are getting with these four architectures. Then we have discovered that this basic architecture and this basic architecture and LeNet. Okay. Although ResNet has performed better, you can see, but then ResNet has some problem. That is, there is lots of variation. We don't want that. We want stable algorithm. Although, uh, see, stable algorithm in the sense the standard deviation should be low. Okay. So ResNet gave us very bad standard deviation. This basic architecture and LeNet, they gave us good uh, outcome. Okay, good result. And then what we did was we explored around this two architecture. We fine-tuned this two architecture. Okay, and then we created three different architecture that improved on what these standard architectures were doing on this data set, right? So this is something that we have been doing, Akashdeep Nandi, your senior, and me, right? Then there is another uh, paper. This is a highly cited paper, generating sentences from a continuous space by all these people. These are workers from Google in the project Google Brain. These people made a machine learning model read 11,000 books. Okay, out of this 3,000 were romantic book and 1,500 were fantasy book. And then they asked this machine learning model to write 10 sentences that began with "There is no one else in the world," and "I turned to him." Okay, and in each sentence, they asked the model to do this: start with this sentence and end with this sentence. Okay, and write total 10 sentence poem, and then go from one sentence to the next sentence so that it makes sense both grammatically and synthetically. The things should read like a poem. Okay, and the machine learning model in fact came out with a very beautiful poem. Let me search. uh, Hold on. Okay, I'm unable to find it now, but then uh, I will give it to you at some later point of time, right? This machine learning model was able to generate a poem that if you look at it and people don't tell you, you may not even realize that a machine has written this poem. Okay, very tragic, in fact. So, yeah, maybe because it was fed lots of romantic novels. So that is something that happened. Okay, machine learning model writing a poem on its own. Then this is something that your classmates Anisha Bora, Dipamnath, Pradipta Borua, and Shikha, they have created for their mini project. It is a recommendation engine. If you give it a movie, like here Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets was given, then it was able to recommend similar movies, right? For example, it has recommended Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix, Harry Potter Goblet of Fire, Prisoner of Azkaban, Return of Oz, but there was apparently some bug in the code because of which uh, the Chamber of Secrets was recommended again. Okay. Now something to notice: this Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, very similar movies have been recommended to the user, and this Return of Oz was recommended, but it is also a similar movie of adventure, mystery, right, fantasy, so and a family film. So similar, very similar movie, a fantasy movie, a fun movie, all right, was recommended by the system. So I would say this is good recommendation. So yeah, this is one more application that you have. Now, uh, in the next class, we are going to talk about a proper definition of machine learning. Right. This is a proper definition of machine learning, a well-posed learning problem. Then we are going to look at example. We are going to look at how to go ahead and design a learning system. Essentially, there are going to be, I believe, 5 steps: choosing the training experience, then choose the target function, choose the representation of the target function, and choose a function approximation algorithm. So 4 steps. And then we are going to look at the types of learning: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement. We are going to look at them in details, and we are going to talk about the machine learning algorithms that you are going to look at in module 2 and 3. Right? This would be the content of our next class, next video. So if you have any doubt, then do interact with me, ask me your doubt in our live classes, or you can leave your doubts in the comment section below. You can reach out to me on WhatsApp. This ends our video for today. Thank you for watching the video. See you in the next video.